Hi-ho, ChibiMethos here, and welcome back to the Little Old People Podcast. I'm here with my co-old person, Mark.
AKA the little black dude. If this is your first time listening, we're two oldish nerds looking at random fandoms from varying directions.
I'm a historian and archaeologist by degree and a wage slave by trade, or is that former wage slave by trade? Mark is a jeweler, YouTuber, and fellow fan enthusiast. Our topic this week is about what films are your comfort foods? What movies or even TV shows automatically come to mind when you turn on the TV or boot up your computer when you're looking for something to watch? We are also talking about nostalgic reboots of, let's be real, our childhood classic films. Love them or hate them, the reboots are here to stay. So let's talk about them and why they seem so pervasive at the moment. Are screenwriters running out of ideas? Are they getting lazy? Or is it simply studio greed? We have a packed show ahead of us, so let's get started. First, comfort films. My list has a few films on it and a few TV shows. First and foremost, I am a Janeite, which means I am obsessed with all things Jane Austen. So then it must follow that I've read all the books and seen all the films, and you would be 100% correct. My favorite Jane Austen book is the one I first read and the last that Jane ever wrote, Persuasion. There have been at least 3 adaptations of this book that I know of in 1973, 1995, and 2003, and I've seen all of them. But my go-to favorite is the 1995 version with Kieran Hinde and Amanda Root. They are my Anne Elliot and Captain Wentworth. The other various films and series are good, but I always drift back to Persuasion. When I'm not in the mood for a costume drama, then it's all Middle-earth all the time. For me, The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films are the films that if I was asked how often I've seen them, the only answer I can give is another question. This year or since they were released? I can tell you that I only watch the extended editions, which are close to 3.5 hours each, and it takes about 26 hours total, including potty breaks, to watch them all in one sitting. Best New Year's ever.
You know how to party, Captain Sama.
Absolutely. And we did take potty breaks. We had chips, we had beer, we did the whole thing. It's fantastic.
How you doing?
Now, I'm not ashamed to admit that I have put these films on a loop and watched them over and over for days on end. They relax me. The epic music, the great acting, the awe-inspiring scenery. See episode 1 for more of my thoughts on this particular subject. Suffice to say, a day may come when I no longer love Lord of the Rings. Wait, what am I saying? That day will never come.
Agreed. Funny story real quick before I get into mine there. The first time I saw Return of the King, I had gone to a friend of mine's house, and she was messing with me because I had seen the first 2 movies, and she's like, "You never saw Return of the King?" I was like, "No." She's like, "You need to come over." So we go over. I did not know that she had the extended version running.
Nice.
We started the extended version of this movie at 10 o'clock, and I had to go to work at 6 in the morning the next day. Oh, I was not happy. Loved the movie. Hated what happened.
Best good tired going to work.
I can definitely agree it was a good day. But for me, my number 1 all-time favorite movie is The Shawshank Redemption. 2 excellent actors in Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins, a Stephen King-inspired story, and a handful of memorable quotes like, "Get busy living or get busy dying." I can't tell you how much I loved just experiencing that movie over and over again. For some reason, whenever I hear the opera that plays over the PA system in the scene in the yard, it hits me right in the feelings with precision. It's like Legolas over here taking aim. It's not fun. Gets me every time. With that said, though, I have a list of movies that have built who I am. The Last Dragon, a cult classic from 1987, is the reason I'm interested in the martial arts. The very notion of a black kung fu master was foreign to me, but two in the same movie, and they're the main protagonist and antagonist. My 6-year-old mind could not handle that movie. There's a deep love for it at the core of my being. Also, knowing that the fight choreography was done by Ronnie Van Cleef, who is the grandmaster of the Chinese Goju style, and a good friend of a few of my instructors, puts an even more ethereal spin on it for me.
So we could do 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with you for this guy.
I think we can.
Nice. I love it.
Shifting from live action to cartoons, I'm a huge fan of Transformers the movie, which came out that same year, 1987. And while there's tons of hate for the current movies, I haven't found too many people who didn't have at least a passing appreciation for the original.
True.
I watched Transformers for as long as I can remember. Came out in America in 1984, and I don't remember a time without it. So when I heard about a movie, I lost it completely. I saw it in the theaters, I did. Cannot tell you how excited I was to see Optimus Prime 20 feet tall on screen. Finally, anime. A repeat viewing from me every time is Rojin Zeto, but it comes with a caveat. This is one of the few anime movies that I watch in English, simply because it's more entertaining to me in English.
Huh.
The Japanese version is worded to be a more serious commentary on the treatment of the elderly, and it focuses on the relationship between Takazawa-san, the elderly man that's in need of care, and his nurse Mitsuhashi Haruko. The movie is equally compelling and beautiful to watch. It's well animated, and in either language it works, but the English version adds comedy in the form of initialisms for everything that the Department of Health Director Terada references. For example, there's a scene where people are sneaking into the hospital, and he says, "This area is for Department of Health authorized personnel, or DOHAPs."
Everything does not need that.
No, it doesn't, but it works. This movie constantly gives me a warm fuzzy every time I watch it, due to the mix of humor, drama, and gorgeous animation.
All right, well, I haven't seen that, so I'll add that to my must-watch list, that's already a mile long. For TV shows, for me, I tend to focus on specific characters rather than series. So there are times that I will go on a Sherlock Holmes kick, and then I will just submerge myself into Victorian England and solve mysteries with Holmes and Watson. It doesn't matter if it's the Granada series from the 1980s with the late, great Jeremy Brett in the titular role. It doesn't matter if it's Iron Man Robert Downey Jr. or, our everyone's favorite Saruman Dracula Count Dooku, the great late Sir Christopher Lee himself. Don't care. Give me Sherlock.
It's elementary.
Absolutely. And then when I'm done with the Victorians, I move on to the modern adaptations with Johnny Lee Miller in Elementary, which just finished up this season and gave me all the feels. The BBC Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch. It doesn't matter as long as it's Sherlock. And if I'm still feeling it, then I move on to my audiobooks. But that's a whole nother podcast. Like, I will just marinate myself in Sherlock. It just will not stop. And anime for me is hard. I have a few cartoons as well as live action versions of series that I really enjoy. But again, I find myself pigeonholing by genre.
Anime's always tough, though, because there's so many series and so many genres. Finding that one that stands out is a Herculean task in some cases.
I don't disagree with that. Rurouni Kenshin and Tsuke Kageran are among my 2 favorite samurai anime, hands down. Kenshin is a total goofus from, the moment you meet him. They can turn into a killing machine on a dime. His eyes go from this lovely, gorgeous, adorable violet to hard yellow. His voice drops 10 octaves, and suddenly he's just a killing machine just wielding a sword. It's fantastic.
Harukirimatosai!
Yes. And Ran is, as her name suggests, carried by the wind. That's what Tsukekage means.
Mm.
You know, she only keeps enough money on her to buy sake and is not above mooching off her sometimes traveling companion, Meow, a Japanese martial artist, or excuse me, a Chinese martial artist, you know, has somehow ended up in Japan and wants to help everybody and just drags Ron into it. All she wants to do is lie in a field and drink sake and nap all day. She's fantastic. But when she has to, she can pull out her sword and kick butt all over the place. It's great. And
This,
it's just one of those series I stumbled across by accident at a con, and I went, Girl Samurai? Sold? Stop talking and take my money. Like, it's never been on TV. I've never seen, you know, anybody talking about it, but I just went ahead and bought it on a whim, and it's turned out to be one of my favorite, like, 13 episode series. It's never had a second season, and it's terrible because I love this show so fucking much. Sorry.
no problem. I can completely understand.
You know, and then, you know, sometimes when I'm not feeling like, you know, I need to eat ridiculous amounts of white rice with chopsticks, you know, then I go slice of life with the Oran High School Host Club, live action and animated, or, you know, a live action series that is actually also a manga, but I've never actually read the manga, called Otomen, which is about a boy who likes to do crafts and who lives with his mother, who wants him to, you know, to be, you know, the tough martial artist, and, you know, she thinks the only way for him to be manly is if he does martial arts, because it turned out the man that she was married to was transsexual and she didn't know that.
Mm.
And when he comes out to her and they get divorced, she gets so paranoid and angry that she takes it out on her son. And like, his thing is he likes crocheting and making like amigurumi dolls and things like
Mm.
that, and he likes cooking, and those are the things that he loves. These things spark joy. And for his mother, the thing that sparks joy is the fact that he's on the kendo team, and she like will leave sweets in the house to tempt him to see if he's, you know, turning girly.
Mm.
So he's not allowed to eat sweets because that makes him girly. So she'll like buy expensive chocolates and leave them in the house to tempt him, and all he can do is just sit there and look at them because he knows if he eats them, then his mother will, you know, accuse him of not being a man. And it's just the most awful thing ever, and I feel so sorry for him.
I can agree.
And
That is terrible.
it's great as the series, and you're like, oh my god, this is the most horribly psychologically abusive thing I've ever seen in my life. And then he meets a girl who's his exact opposite, and it's fantastic. She can't cook to save her life. Her dad runs a dojo, and he's like a police officer, and he wants his daughter to be girly, and all she wants to do is beat up people. And the two of them are just the most perfect couple ever. It's so cute. I just love that series so much.
Yeah, I will be going to find this as well. I gotta put that on my list now. Amusingly enough, though, when you bring this up, it brings to mind a series that I gave a shot to a couple weeks ago that I'm not really into, but it brings the mother-child relationship to mind. It was called Your Lie in April.
Hmm.
The main character is a piano prodigy who is a piano prodigy because his mother was a concert pianist and ended up getting sick before she made it big and was able to, you know, travel the world and whatnot. So she literally beat the piano into him.
Oh, that's awful.
Yes, it is. And during a competition when he was 11 years old, he just broke and could not play the piano anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. I watched this first episode, and it was so dramatic seeing that, and then it just flips over to, you know, cutesy wootsy, you know, high school drama anime, and I was like, no.
That's jarring.
Yes. I'm sure it's a great series because I've heard good things about it, but it was too hard of a break for me. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, you got to give me a minute to process here before you move on to that, because that's almost tone deaf.
Yes, very much so.
Ugh.
Which is one of the reasons I find myself watching a lot of 90s cyberpunk animes. It's kind of where I got started in earnest, you know.
Sure.
But, yeah, the first series I ever saw, well, first movie I ever saw, I should say, that I knew was anime was Kashan Robot Hunter, which came out in like 1987, 88. Yeah, loved it, absolutely loved it. It was absolutely wonderful. But where I spend my time mostly when it comes to rewatching consists of the Bubblegum Crisis series. I have both Tokyo 2030 Tokyo 2032 and 2040.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to find Bubblegum Crash for years. Cannot find it. Cannot find it at all. It's driving me nuts because incomplete.
Have you tried Second and Charles? Not sponsored.
I'm going to have to. Hopefully that will be the solution to my sickness. Another series I absolutely love is The Big O.
Oh.
I know there's lots of people who don't like it, but
Batman with robots. But it's stupid. Sorry.
How is that a bad thing, though? Seriously, how is that a bad thing? The ending of that series, that was stupid. I can 100% agree with you, but I love the action in that show. But I've also gone through a series that I absolutely love, and I don't have the last 2 discs of, which pisses me off, and I didn't finish it. A series called Salty Ray. Another one, it is an interesting series. Girl with no memories shows up in middle of a city. She is quote unquote found and saved by a bounty hunter who had lost his daughter.
Oh.
He wants nothing to do with this girl though, because he spent years being depressed because he lost his whole family in this citywide tragedy. So he's just basically retreated into himself. And this girl kind of brings him out of it, but in a roundabout ass way. But it's so much fun to watch. It is so fun. So if you ever get the chance, please do check it out because there's a lot of things that work with it.
That sounds really fun.
Mm-hmm. Then, while it doesn't really fall into the anime category squarely, it's enough a part of the fandom to count. I've watched Avatar: The Last Airbender through and through multiple times. And as much as it's a show pointed at kids, there's advice and messages that resonate no matter how old I get. Pretty much anything Uncle Iroh says works for me. There's also an episode called The Guru, which I actually have to watch very soon because I've been kind of down in the dumps a little bit, but doing better. When Aang is learning how to open up his chakras to reach the Avatar state, be able to go in and out of it, I usually watch it when I'm feeling, uninspired and I'm languishing in my tough times, because its purpose is to help Aang prepare for a difficult battle, and it oftentimes helps me do the same.
Hey, you know what? If it works, it works. Go for it.
While we're at it, though, since we are talking about reboots, why don't we talk about Reboot? Reboot the Guardian Code.
Oh, not the good reboot.
Yeah, the reboot no one wanted. All they had to do was pick up where the last episode of Reboot left off and run from there. They'd have been fine. They would watch the Binomes finish their musical recap of the entire series, which was friggin' adorable. And then, watches the cast, watches it live and all that. And then the first episode, I would have thought would have, been the day after that. And then, whatever's feeling common for, that period of time. Right. They would they would go into MMOs through the internet, interact with esports players, stop cyber terrorists, things like that. That's how I feel when it comes down to it. That would have worked.
Yeah, see, and the Guardian Code, I watched one episode and then that was the end of it. I was like, but I'm done, I'm out. That is, to use a sports metaphor, that is fumbling the ball at the 20-yard line with nobody for miles. That is what that was.
I 100% agree, because that series tried to do what Code Lyoko did, and not nearly as well. And Code Lyoko was not a good show to begin with.
No.
Mm.
No, and the thing is, Reboot was so... What I
it was
loved... It was made in Windows 3.1.
It was iconic. It broke boundaries. It did so much. You gotta do something more.
Yeah.
You have to.
I mean, there were games on the PS1 at the same time that didn't look as good as Reboot did. We were fine with people having square edges on the PlayStation 1, and we just went, yeah, that's cool. And then you looked at Reboot and went, wait a minute. And that was a weekly half-hour kids show.
Yep.
It was so innovative, and with the internet exploding the way that it has, and with mobile phones and apps, and the possibilities were literally endless. Where they could have gone with that series, and they just dumped it. They fumbled, and that was the end of it. I mean, they saw their shoe was untied and just dropped the ball. And,
I agree.
and we lost out, and that's frustrating. Well, since we're on the subject of real reboots, let's talk real reboots.
Okay,
Just
let's
to,
do it.
not to change oars, but let's talk reboots.
Yes.
Now, to be honest, it is a rather new phenomenon. Movies have only existed for a little over a century, but in this last decade, there has been a rather odd occurrence in Hollywood. It seems that the creative wells have all run very, very, very dry.
We have been going to the reboot well a lot these days, and I can't for the life of me understand why, past it being a cash grab on stories that already succeeded in their proper time.
Well, I mean, I understand remaking certain things because you want a new generation, to give it fresher eyes. And let's hop back to Jane Austen for a second.
Mm.
When I talk about the adaptations of her books, yeah, her story is 200. The books that we're adapting are 200 years old, but every generation that adapts it, they put a different spin on it. They try to take it a little bit closer to the original work. So certain things like that, I'm fine with that as a reboot. Like I found out they're re-releasing her book Emma as a movie in 2020.
Mm.
I haven't even seen a preview for it. All I heard was Emma 2020, and I said, "Stop talking, take my money." I'm gonna go see it. It doesn't matter. I own all of the adaptations of Emma. From the 40s, there was one in the 70s, there's another one in the 80s, they did one in the 90s, there was one in the 2000s with Gwyneth Paltrow. I own all of them. I've seen all of them. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go see this one. So certainly I understand redoing a movie or, readapting something to adjust it for the time periods that it's in. But this is crazy what's been going on in Hollywood. Everything is a reboot, a remake, a retelling, or a bloody sequel. I mean, honestly, all I can say is Hollywood, WTF.
Mm.
Are there
There's
really nothing new out there?
there's obviously appropriate times for reboots, and some movies and shows that could use one, but they're never the ones that get that reboot.
Yeah.
I mean, let's tell Cinderella one more bloody time, huh?
Oh, come on. I love that story. I even read it in my German class, and I found out her name is actually Aschenputtel, which means little ash girl. I love that. I mean, but don't misread me. I like some of these remakes, especially when you're going from a cartoon to a live action, because for me, they harken back to rewatching TV shows just with real people. And I happened to like the Cinderella movie that came out with, Lily James and the ethereally gorgeous Kate Blanchett as the air quotes evil stepmother.
Kate Blanchett is wonderful regardless. I
Oh
cannot
gosh,
disagree with that.
absolutely. She is our generation's Meryl Streep, and you can fight me if you don't agree.
I will fight you regardless, but not over that. We're martial artists, of course we will fight each other. Oh yeah.
I mean, like, I loved the new Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson and Dan Stevens, who is just absolutely wonderful. And, for me, just, on the nerdy on the side note, he also has Jane Austen adaptation cred as Edward Ferrars in the 2009 BBC version of Sense and Sensibility. And I really enjoyed the new Aladdin movie, with Will Smith and several new actors in it that were new to me. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't. There was even new songs. Yeah, they changed the tempo on some of the songs to fit, Will's singing style, but overall, I thought it was a very fun movie with the appropriately ethnic cast. Which,
That I can always roll with. That
yeah.
needs to be a more common thing. So I definitely can agree with you on that.
Yeah. Now, I haven't seen, Dumbo or The Lion King. A lot of people said those were, just a hot CG mess. I happen to like Dumbo, but it was one of those traumatic, like well, for some people, Bambi was traumatic. I didn't understand it when I watched it as a little kid, and as I got older, I just didn't care. Yeah, I'm heartless, so what? But like Dumbo made me cry as a child. That was definitely my Disney movie that had me sitting in the corner going, that was that was mine. So I haven't seen Dumbo. Because I don't feel like crying over a movie right now. I'm just not in the mood for that.
Yeah, absolutely fine with that, because I went there with a series. I'll talk about that another time, though.
Okay, yeah. Now, out of the, one of the three Disney princesses, and people will disagree with me on this, that I personally despise is the ever-saccharine Snow White.
Can't stand her.
The other two princesses I can't stand have a joint film, and that's all I will say about them. Okay. Snow White has got a live action reboot with Kirsten Stewart, the cardboard box, and Chris Hemsworth and Charlize Theron. I went to see it because Chris Hemsworth was in it and Charlize Theron.
I still have a bone to pick with Charlize Theron because of Aeon Flux, but that's neither here nor there. I can definitely get down with Chris Hemsworth all day, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was less objectified Chris Hemsworth for an hour and 20 minutes, and I was fine with that. It was called Snow White and the Huntsman, and then that got its own sequel called The Huntsman, which focused on, Chris Hemsworth, which, again, let's go objectify Chris Hemsworth for an hour and a half. Win. And then there was a slightly earlier film, again, about Snow Bloody White, called Mirror Mirror, with Julia Roberts playing the evil queen. And actually that one was actually like a Bollywood film. So there's a giant dance number at the wedding at the end, Bollywood style. And it comes out of nowhere. Like, you're watching the wedding, and then all of a sudden you hear the Bollywood style music, and everybody breaks into dance, and you're like, what did I accidentally sit on the remote or something?
There are times when that works, but I don't think that the Snow White story is one of those times.
No. I mean, yes, if you go back and read the Hans Christian Andersen, I believe it was, or maybe it was the Grimm brothers, don't remember, don't care. It does end with a wedding. But, all right. What most people don't know about Snow White is in the original story, she's 7. The evil queen is jealous of a 7-year-old and sends her into the woods to be murdered by a grown man who doesn't want to do it because she's 7 years old. She gets poisoned by a grown woman, put into a coffin, is then seen by an adult prince who kisses her and wakes her up, takes her to his palace for them to be married. I'm going to say it one more time louder for the people in the back. She's 7 years old.
No wonder she was fairer.
Disney, when they made it into a cartoon, decided it would be slightly less creepy to make her 14.
And while it is slightly less creepy, not as much as they thought it was going to be.
No. 7!
It's all you needed to say for me. It's all you needed to say.
I'm done. I don't like Snow White.
I don't blame you. I really don't.
And if the movie's getting a live-action reboot in 2020 as well, maybe they'll make her 16 this time.
Oh, can we hope? Can we hope?
Nobody was asking for this film.
There's been a bunch of those as well, but that, again, will be another podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There is one movie I would love to see a reboot for, and I know unless a ton of people sign a petition, it will never get made, and that's Short Circuit. I would love to see the tale of a military-grade robot getting struck by lightning and attaining sentience with a new veneer on it. Do like they did in, both Ghostbusters and Force Awakens, and use a blend of the practical effects and the CG to kind of blur the line some, and tell a story of a killing machine more interested in preserving life.
Only if they play Who's Johnny.
If they don't, I'm going to have to stab someone.
Yeah.
That needs to happen. It would also give Steve Guttenberg something to do, bring him back, to reprise his role, and then get an actual Indian guy to play Ben. That would be perfect.
Yes, a slightly less racist version of him. Can we have that, please? Oh my God, that was so embarrassing.
Yes. See, the worst part about that for me is that I was a little kid watching this movie, and even I was like, okay, something seems wrong here, but I don't know why. Had no clue until I was an adult that, it was brownface.
Yeah.
Yes. I do think, though, that if they did a reboot, retell the story from the first and the second movies in like a more concise manner, kind of cut out a little bit of the fat, because there were some things in the first movie that were absolutely brilliant that I thought were wonderful, and then there were moments of like, what is happening here? Same thing for Same thing for the second movie. The whole scene where he's digging his way into the bank across the street from where they are. I love the way that that's shot. I absolutely love it because it makes sense for the story itself. But
Sure.
even though I loved I'm holding out for a hero, there were way too many freaking, tracking shots in that thing. You can cut that down just a little bit. But it would be so good to see something like that, and I think it would be a really feel-good 21st century type movie. I would absolutely love it if it happened.
Yeah, if it looked good, if I saw the previews for that and it looked good, yeah, I'd probably go down to the lobby right then and there and buy my tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with that. Now, I know a few years ago, like Willy Wonka got a reboot with Johnny Depp, and so did Alice in Wonderland. And I'll be honest, I enjoyed the Alice in Wonderland.
I enjoyed the first one. I haven't seen the second one.
Okay, I saw them both. I got dressed up for both of them. I was the Mad Hatter. I was Mad Hatter for both of them. There are some movies I will literally cosplay to go see, and that was two of them.
I have one word. I have one sentence for you. Pixar, it didn't happen.
Well, I have picks for one of them.
Okay. I need to see them eventually, because I would love to see you as the Mad Hatter, and I hope that's what you got.
Unfortunately, it wasn't for the Mad Hatter.
Damn.
Sorry, it was for Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. But yeah, I really enjoyed those. And Tron Legacy got Tron got a sequel, which was Tron Legacy. Set 25 years after the fact to account for the fact that the actors were older. And having not seen the original Tron, I know sacrilegious, but it just wasn't a movie that came on TV that often, so it just wasn't something that was in my wheelhouse. I actually enjoyed Tron Legacy. I mean, it was a little boring in some places, but overall, I enjoyed it.
As someone who has seen both Tron and Tron Legacy, I was so happy.
Okay.
They did such a good job making callbacks to the first movie. Everything that they did, it reached back and grabbed something from the first movie, brought it forward, and said, "Hey, motherfucker, remember this?"
Okay. And I had the feeling that was kind of where it was going. So there's certain things I was like, I don't get this, but I feel like it's a callback. And maybe that's because I've been watching too many reboots. But yeah, I could tell there was fan service in there, and I was like, this is a movie for the fans, and I'm coming into it cold. So I was not going to fault it for those things because I could kind of sense where they were. And I figured, once I had some backstory, I'd probably be fine with it.
The whole fan service that I got, and once I saw this, I was like, I don't care what else happens in this movie, I'm good with. When they went into the club and the music is playing and stuff like that, I'm like, oh wow, this sounds pretty cool. This kind of sounds like Daft Punk. Soon as I said that, the two dudes from Daft Punk are in the friggin' booth. I was done.
I saw that, and I was in theater. I'm like, oh my god, that's Daft Punk. Yeah.
I didn't need anything else. I needed nothing else after that. I was good with that movie.
Yeah, I was like seriously waiting for them to play Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, so I really, really did enjoy that movie. And honestly, I am breathless with anticipation for the Mulan sequel, or reboot rather, which is being done based on the actual Chinese tale.
Which is a good move.
And people on the internet are like, oh, it doesn't have Mushu. It's not going to have singing in it. I'm not going to go see it. And I'm like, bitch, this is the original Chinese tale. It has Chinese people in it. Stop talking and take my money.
While I can't disagree with the people who are like, okay, where's Mushu going to be? That's not a deal breaker for me. It would be funny as all hell, but that's not going to stop me from enjoying the movie if it's done well.
Because I've read the original Chinese tale, and Mulan is a beloved character, and she's like on Joan of Arc levels. That's how people know that story in China. Yeah, no, and this is Disney making a movie with ethnically correct characters. Throw money at that so Disney will keep doing it.
I mean, with their animation, they tried to lean more towards that and have more of the cultures of things be in there, but you can always improve, obviously.
Yes, well, Ji-Chan told me she heard the other day, she heard Reflections being played with the Chinese instrumental music underneath it. She said it is absolutely beautiful, and I desperately want to hear this now. I'm so excited for this movie. I cannot stand myself. So, and the other movie I'm excited about is coming up pretty soon. No announcement date as far as when, but it's probably sometime 2020. Is they're remaking The Little Mermaid as a live action movie, and the mermaid and Ariel is being played by a black actress named Halle Bailey. She's adorable. I understand she's a musician. I'm so excited about this. I just I can't even. I'm so excited.
I like the idea that somebody new is going to be, taking the role, but at the same time, Little Mermaid is a problem for me, not because I think it's a bad story or a bad movie or anything like that, but when they had done both a sequel and a prequel of that movie, I was like, okay, I'm good. I understand where all this is coming from. Let it die. That's how I felt. When I saw this, I was like, okay, no big deal for me. And then I watched it, the internet explode. Oh my God, Ariel's not black. Why the Shut up. Shut up.
Yeah.
Please, just shut up.
Honestly, the best comment I read that somebody posted was, when I was a kid and I saw Ariel for the first time and she made it acceptable for me to have red hair. And now they're remaking Ariel and she's going to be black. Let them have this. And I was like, yes, all of this. Give me more of this.
Yes, because that is a sensible human being, and I love sensible human beings.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm all about this. I'm very excited for it. I will go see it. I don't care. So, yeah, I'm very excited about that. And, even, going back to storybooks again, Sleeping Beauty, another one of my favorite stories. And you're probably going to want to fight me on this, but got ruined as an Angelina Jolie film, Maleficent.
I liked Maleficent, but I get why you don't like it. I do understand it.
I don't mind the story being retold from the villain's point of view, because let's be honest, we all grew up thinking we were going to be Disney princesses, and we actually turned out to be the evil stepmother because we understand her now. Let's just be real here. I don't mind this. Go ahead.
I never grew up being the one that wanted to be a Disney princess, but I over the years realized that I am the Grinch.
Oh, yeah. No, I never wanted to be the Disney princess, but you know who my two favorite people were, like, from those movies? Not the princesses. I liked Prince Philip from Sleeping Beauty and Prince Eric from Little Mermaid. Well, I was Philip. I was fighting the dragon, and I was riding horses, and I was a knight. And, Eric was a sailor, and he was going on adventures, and he played the flute. He looked cool when he posed. I didn't play princesses. I was Philip and Eric. That's what I wanted to be. I was, princesses sit around waiting to get rescued. Princes went out and did stuff. So
I can definitely be with you on Philip, though. I like Prince Philip as a character. I've always enjoyed him. Eric, and not really a big fan of Prince Eric. But hey, I'm not stopping.
Hey, you know what? I'll be the first to admit it, and I'm going to say it without shame. I was 8 years old, so you cannot fault me for this. But he was definitely my first cartoon crush.
Aww.
So yeah, we watched The Little Mermaid a lot. I feel sorry for my parents, but we watched that movie a lot. So, but yeah, I welcome stories being told from the villain's point of view. In fact, please do it. Make the villain sympathetic, because not everything is black and white, But can we not have Angelina Jolie, please? But yeah, but who? My question is, aside from that, who are these reboots really for? And were they really being asked for? Who was asking for 3 or 4 retellings of Snow White? How many times do we need to retell these stories when we already have them written down and they're such a part of the cultural zeitgeist that I could probably go to my 3-year-old nephew and say, hey, tell me about Sleeping Beauty. Tell me about Snow White. And he could probably tell me some probably cobbled together, but a version of that story that would make something like sense. Who is asking for gritty reboots of children's stories?
I don't know who's asking for gritty reboots of anything, and I don't really get why this happens so much. And there's so many times where a movie that's absolutely fine, or a show that they decided to make a movie of that's absolutely fine, gets a gritty reboot, and I'm like, what are you doing here? Why is this a thing? Lately, and I really, 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 really hope this does not happen. But my favorite gritty reboot to hate is hands down the trailer for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Wait, what?
Yeah. The trailer feels like watching Boys in the Hood until you hear the words of the theme song paraphrased in it.
Okay. What? Why are they remaking Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? That was a TV series.
I don't have a clue. No idea why this is happening. None whatsoever. A friend of mine said, "Ooh, you got to see this trailer. You got to see this. This is going to be so cool." And I'm like, okay, sure. Why not? You know me. I'll give stuff a shot. And I see the thing. And I'm like, okay, this looks kind of okay. And then I realize what's happening. They actually do for a split second the freaking spin over the head thing from the opening scene. That was when I realized what was happening. And I was like, no, that has to be a coincidence. It has to be. And then you go to Will and his mom, and she's like, you keep getting in trouble, you keep doing this, you keep doing that. I'm sending you to your aunt and your uncle's house in Bel-Air. I was like, what?
No.
The whole fight scene was there, the whole, culture shock and turmoil for Will, but I can't stop cringing at the fact that they took a sitcom, which was interesting and funny and endearing. And yes, it did have its moments that were tough, and there are moments that were, growing experiences. Like the one episode when Carlton ended up taking speed by mistake. Oh my God.
The episode where he thought he accidentally got a girl pregnant, and he's worrying about having to pony up, and he does, and it turns out the kid's not even his, but he was still willing to take that step and just do what needed to be done. Oh, absolutely.
And then the one that hit me closest to home, when his dad comes to visit him, and they're supposed to go out on the road together, and dude's trying to leave before, Will gets up, and he tells, Uncle Phil, you need to tell him that, I'm not going to be able to take him with me and all that. That whole end scene, the last 3 or 4 minutes of that episode, pretty much described how I felt about my dad as a kid. Hit me directly in the feels. So now they're doing this bull? What were they thinking? I hope like crazy that it falls through and never comes out. And if it does, I hope it bombs. I hope it bombs over Baghdad, for crying out loud. I hope it bombs hard. There's no reason whatsoever. You can't do something like that and think it's going to be a good move. No. No way. Does not work that way.
I've slowly been getting into social media, and I'm sorry, but number one, no one's talking about this, and number two, I cannot remember seeing anybody asking for this. No, this is not. No, nobody was asking for this. 90s kids were not asking for this.
Nope.
Stop touching my nostalgia. I didn't ask you to touch that. There's certain things that are sacrosanct. That's not that. You don't touch it. Just leave it alone.
I think this is my personal opinion when it comes to stuff like this. There are a handful of people who are in the right place at the right time to be able to make something out of something they grew up with.
Yes.
And they get way too caught up in the limelight of the whole thing and forget the reason why they're doing it in the first place. A perfect example of this is the Smurfs.
Oh, God.
I watched both of the live-action Smurfs movies against my will. Against my will. I didn't want to see either of them. When I thought that there was one coming out, I was like, what? Why? Why is this a thing? My niece was watching it in her room, and she was like, Uncle Mark, come watch with me. I was like, okay, fine. I sat there and I watched this movie, and I said, oh, my God, my heart. My heart hurts so much. This is not a thing that should be happening. Then a couple of years later, another one comes out, and I was working in a group home, and I ended up going to see that movie with a couple of the kids. And again, I said, why is this a thing? Please tell me why is this a thing? Later that year, there was an animated Smurfs movie that came out, and it was the friggin' Smurfs. It was the actual Smurfs. It was the way that it should have been, because they had done it as like it was like a retelling of Sleepy Hollow type of thing.
Oh, okay.
But
all right.
It was all traditional animation. The characters were voiced well.
Okay.
The way the story ran from what I saw of it, excellent. Absolutely wonderful. I'm like, this is what we should have got. Why did we not get this?
Or Alvin and the Chipmunks,
Oh,
a cartoon that I loved as a child
same
because it
here.
was a musical cartoon.
Yes.
They turned it into creepy CG human-sized, I think, creatures. I don't know. I didn't see it. I saw the CG and I went, no. I don't know what that is, but keep it away from me.
Okay, so I am about to ruin you.
I threw salt at it and holy water, and then threw salt circle around myself. So
I am about to ruin you because I do not want to suffer by myself on this.
oh no.
Okay. First of all, the fact that there were 3 of these movies,
Yeah.
and no, they were not human-sized, thankfully,
Oh, okay.
but the fact that there were 3 of them already was a problem.
Yeah.
Now, you and I grew up watching Alvin and the Chipmunks, the old cartoon from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even though it started out in like the late 60s, early 70s, but they had redone it in the 80s, it still had the same kind of feel.
Yeah, absolutely. You watch it for the music.
Yes, I found out a couple of years ago they rebooted the cartoon too.
No, stop it.
Oh no, there's more.
Oh no. No.
I watched not 1 but 2 episodes back to back just to see what happened. The only thing that worked for me in this entire thing was the fact that they were still using the same vocal trick to get their voices right.
Okay.
That's the only thing that was good about this show. They tried to keep the aesthetic from the 80s show in a CG show, and it didn't work. It so did not work.
No.
Oh, it hurt so bad to watch.
No. Oh, that's just terrible.
This is another example of the worst. The only thing worse than not knowing is knowing.
I hate you right now.
I'm sure you'll get over it, but and I'm very sure that there will be another moment where you'll get to do the same thing to me.
Oh gosh. Well, actually, I can sort of do that to you. Now, I don't know if you heard about it within the last, I'd say 6-8 weeks. We're not only rebooting movies, but apparently we're now rebooting the dead because nothing is sacred anymore.
Do tell.
There's a movie coming out soon called Finding Jack. And the director has said, I did all these casting calls, and I just kept thinking, gosh, I wish James Dean could play this part. By James Dean, of course, I mean the man that died in 1964, James Dean. This is just a quick interjection. I wanted to say that I misspoke during the original episode. Dean was killed in a car accident in 1955, not 1964. So I just wanted to make sure that that got corrected.
Okay, so we're not getting a movie about sausage.
No. Not Jimmy Dean. James Dean. Rebel Without a Cause. East of Eden.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
So he and the director, Anton Ernst, obtained the rights to use Dean's image from the actor's family. And the movie is going to be body double acted by somebody else, and then they're going to CG out his face and put James Dean's head on his body.
Why? Seriously?
Yeah.
Why?
It's going to be released around Veterans Day of next year. So now we can say, oh, we need Marlon Brando for something. Not Godfather Marlon Brando, but, hot 1950s Marlon Brando. We've got archival footage. It's fine. Oh, we need Judy Garland for something. That's fine. We have The Wizard of Oz. Oh, we need Betty Grable for a scene. It's all right. We have archival footage. You are not allowed to be dead anymore. This is opening up a floodgate that should never have been opened. And for once, the internet is in a furor over this. United in disgust.
As they should be. Because unfortunately, James Dean had a tragic death.
Yes.
And the least that anyone who is a decent human being can do is let him rest in peace.
It's been 64 years.
It is insane that that's even a thing that someone decided to do. Now, as a caveat to this, I can understand if you're inserting a character into a period piece and they're there for a couple of minutes, like they did in Forrest Gump. I get that. I get that because there's a purpose for that because it's happening at a specific time.
Correct.
But you just said, no actor that I can find right now will fit this role. So let me go and see if I can resurrect this person's face to be in my movie to make me money. That is horrible.
Yes. The part I don't understand is they're going to have somebody doing the actions, which means you found an actor that's the right height, right weight, has the correct walking style. You're going to pay this person to act in this entire movie, and a person who's been dead for over 50 years is the one that's going to get top billing.
You're essentially paying a person to not be in a film.
Yes.
That's
where my disconnect comes in. I don't understand.
That is a horrible concept, especially knowing how many people just want to act. There are so many people who will take bit parts just so they can either be on a movie screen or be in the background of a movie or be on stage somewhere. For crying out loud, I was bad guy number 6 in a couple of action films because I really enjoy action. Nobody knew who I was at all. I had, 3 speaking roles. No, 3 spoken lines in the entire thing. I don't care. I had fun. I enjoyed myself. So I know what that feels like. Whoever the person is going to spend weeks basically doing all the work for Jimmy Dean.
Yes.
That's not cool.
No.
There's nothing about that makes any sense. And it's not going to open much of any doors for whoever the actor is, especially if they're a new person, because no one's going to recognize their face.
That's correct. And as a child, I did acting as well. I was extra in several movies. As a kid, my mom was there, my siblings were there. That was something that we did. That was a lot of fun. Most of these movies were released in Europe because they were spaghetti westerns. But it doesn't matter. It's fun, and it's something that's, I would do again in a heartbeat if somebody said, hey, you can be, pedestrian number 2, walk through the background, try not to look like you're the same person as you go by twice. I can do that. But why are you doing this to people? I don't understand. It's so awful. And it opens up so many, the parade of horribles, if you carry it all the way out to the end, is just not even worth thinking about. Definitely. I understand fantasy casting. I have done it before.
Mm-hmm. And you still impress me by how good you are at it.
And, you always have to specify whenever you do this, especially when it's a fun exercise, just as a mental exercise, living or dead. Because if you can go dead, you can just say anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sorry. On a planet with 7.5 billion people on it, you're telling me you can't find one person to substitute for somebody that's been dead for over half a century? No. I'm sorry. It's not acceptable. No.
No, it's not.
No, there is no way any of that is acceptable. No, it's just not okay.
To me, this is reverse laziness because it's going to take a shit ton more work to do this.
Oh, yeah, because they're going to have to CG out the actor's face and put Dean's face in.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're going to have to go back into his films and yes, this part will be fairly easy. Play his movies through a computer, extract his voice, and get the modulations correct to then be put into the movie saying these lines. That part's easy enough. I mean, that's probably going to be the easiest part of this film.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Why are you spending the extra time and effort and money to do this? No, nobody was calling for this. I'm fine with reboots. You know what? Make all the bloody Snow Whites you want. Stop this now before it becomes a thing. We are not resurrecting the dead. That's not how this works.
I am 100% with you. There's no reason for it, because if they do it once, they're going to do it 100 times, and no one's going to be able to have any actual peace, especially when you've got someone who died tragically. And there's a lot of those. For crying out loud, the 27 Club is a thing.
God, yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I get using archival footage, as you said, in a Forrest Gump-like situation where it's in the background, it plays for a few seconds, and you just let it go. That's fine. Nobody has any issues with that. But there's just so many ways that this can be abused. It just makes me viscerally angry. And I'm sorry to end the podcast on a rant, but this needs to not be a thing. I'm sorry for this director. I understand that he has a vision for this film, and I appreciate that. And if it had been any other situation, I might have even been looking forward to seeing this. But I kind of hope this bombs. Because if this is successful, this is going to create a precedent.
And it'll be a can of worms that nobody will be able to close.
That is correct. No. I'm fine with reboots, but there are certain things that should not be rebooted, and one of them is the dead.
Agreed. Because there are a lot of places where this could be abused poorly, and anything that we need to do, differently is try not to do things in poor taste that are going to be in the public eye, because we already have enough crazy crap happening because people get hurt by thoughtless actions. And there's a lot of people who are pissed off for no reason about something that literally isn't a problem. But because it offends their sensibilities in a way that they weren't expecting, it's immediately an affront to them as, they exist, and everything about who they are has been, destroyed and, attacked and everything. We need to not touch on things like this. I've always said things need to still be sacred from time to time.
Yeah.
There are times where looking back and saying, okay, well, this is something that was useful, something that was good, something that, we can emulate. I got no issues with that. And that's part of the reason why reboots are a good thing from time to time. When it happens every now and again, I can get behind that. But the fact that there have been so many has been my biggest problem. I don't mind something being rebooted, especially if it's done well. But the fact that it seems like all of these reboots are coming out almost around the same time, like you had pointed out, something doesn't feel right about it. And this, I think, is the worst offender. There's no reason for this. None whatsoever. And I've said that plenty of times about rebooted movies or remade series. There's no reason for this. There is no absolute reason for this. James Dean needs to stay dead so he can rest. Period. Because the memory we have of the movies he was in, the memory we have of the TV shows he's been on, things of that nature, that's what needs to live on.
And that's his legacy. That's where his legacy stopped.
Yes.
Yes, he was young. He was handsome. Yes, he had all of the world ahead of him. He had the future ahead of him. And unfortunately, sometimes, not to be cruel, not to be callous, but some stars burn very bright and stuff out early.
Yes.
And unfortunately, he was among that group. And there was a lot of them dying around that time for just those same reasons. See also Buddy Holly. But let's just not make this a precedent, please. Can we just kill it, please? Just no.
I hope so. I really do hope so. But I know that it's hard to not rant about it, because me, I'm ranty as hell.
Yeah.
You guys can definitely see that on my channel At Home with a Geek. I do spend a lot of time ranting about different things. You can also get in touch with us and give us what you think about what it is that we're doing and the kind of things you want us to talk about more at our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/littleoppodcast. as well as on Twitter at twitter.com/littleoppodcast. You can send us an email as well at littleoldpeoplepodcast@gmail.com.
All right, and you can listen to us right now. We're currently posting up on YouTube, so you can just go in and type in Little Old People Podcast, and our episodes will be right there for you to listen to. So, I've been ChibiMethos. He's been the little black dude, and we'll see you on our next episode. Bye, everybody.
Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.